Would you give an alcoholic alcohol to cure their alcoholism? Of course not. That's silly, right? Obviously, you don't give a person with a disease what gives them the disease. Well, type 2 diabetics have a disease. It's called advanced insulin resistance. And they have been eating so many carbohydrates and sugars. I'm John Laspina, the carnivore teacher, by the way. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. They're eating so many carbs and sugar that over time, the insulin receptors on the outside of their cells don't let the glucose into the cells anymore because it's tired. It's resistant. And so the sugar is just floating around the bloodstream, and anytime it doesn't have a job to do, like making energy, it glycates. You know what sugar does when you drop like sugary water? It gets all sticky, right? It does the same thing inside your body. Sugary stuff gets sticky inside and it damages your cells along the way. Everything sugar touches, if it's not being used for energy, it's damaging. Now, if a person has an HbA1c of above 6.5, it's technically called type 2 diabetes. Now, I'm not talking about type 1 diabetes today at all. Type 1 diabetes is not caused by a person eating a poor diet. They do not have the beta cells to make insulin, so their pancreas is broken. I'm talking about people who had a healthy pancreas and they damaged their body. Their pancreas is actually making more insulin, but the cells are rejecting it. So they're insulin resistant. And you have hyperinsulinemia, as well as a lot of sugar floating around in the body. A type 2 diabetic is going to have a lot of problems. They're going to possibly have their foot amputated, or they could go blind. They're going to have a lot of diseases. They're going to be obese. Now, like I said at the beginning of this video, would you ever give an alcoholic alcohol to solve their alcoholism? No. Why is the industry giving type 2 diabetes more insulin and telling them to eat a lot of healthy whole grains? That's the same thing as telling an alcoholic to drink alcohol to solve their alcoholism. Diabetics should not be having more insulin. Their body's already making tons of insulin. They're giving themselves even more. And then they're also offering the advice to eat a lot of healthy whole grains. What are whole grains? Grain, whole or processed, is carbohydrate. Carbohydrate turns into sugar. All right, this is just, people are getting sicker and sicker on this horrible advice. What's the solution for an alcoholic? You tell them they either have to go dry out and go through the DTs and do it all at once and hope they don't die, or they slowly reduce the alcohol and then stop. And then they have to become a non-drinker for the rest of their life because they have a disease. They know that if they have one drink, they're going to crave more and can't stop thinking about it. They have an addiction to alcohol. I have that addiction to sugar, so I kind of know what it feels like. I do not have that addiction to alcohol. I don't even like alcohol. That person, you don't give them alcohol to solve their alcohol problem. You give them no alcohol, and that solves the alcoholism problem. Their liver starts to heal if they didn't damage it too far, and they don't get sick anymore. Same thing with the type 2 diabetic. If you take a type 2 diabetic off of carbohydrates and sugar, stop telling them to eat a lot of healthy whole grains. Eat no whole grains. Eat no wheat. Eat no corn. Eat no rice. Eat no bread. No carbohydrates and sugar, or very low, and they don't need the insulin anymore because eventually their pancreas it's giving that insulin. The cells are not so resistant anymore because it's not seeing it 24/7, all the sugar, and it's starting to become more insulin sensitive. And you get healthy, and a type 2 diabetic is cured. They're in remission. They don't have type 2 diabetes anymore. They don't need insulin because they're not eating carbohydrates and sugar. Thousands, hundreds and thousands of people are on YouTube sharing their success stories about not being a type 2 diabetic anymore. Isn't that fantastic? And all it is taking away the variable that caused the problem. Alcohol caused the problem for the alcoholic. Sugar and carbs caused the problem for the diabetic, the type 2 diabetic. So let me talk about type 1 diabetes for a minute. If you are a type 1 diabetic, you probably inherited this, and it's not because you're eating too many carbs and sugar, but it's because your pancreas just doesn't work. So you have to inject insulin, you have to measure your blood sugar and give yourself just the amount of insulin so that the insulin gets the sugar into the cells. Most type 1 diabetic are underweight and skinny because they're malnourished. So in conclusion, eating a proper human diet of beef, lamb, pork, poultry, fish, and eggs, very low in carbohydrate and sugar. If you're a type 2 diabetic, you will cure yourself and you won't be diabetic anymore. Type 1, you too can benefit by eating low. Just measure your blood and take your insulin, and don't add more carbohydrates and sugar because then you've got to add more insulin. It's really that simple, that if you understand the concept of the alcoholism and the diabetes, it's what we're doing to ourselves. So eat well and have a great day.